Let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe when we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the badge, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell.
Oh, yes, indeed. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a little bit of Strictly Speaking Unfiltered on a Thursday, the 22nd, according to my daily flip calendar that I've had for 35 years. Today's inspirational quote to start the day: the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is just that little extra. That is exactly right. In all manners. So, good morning. Thanks for being with us. It is 7 o'clock. What's the chat room looking like right now? Let me get into the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, God bless you, God love you, and I appreciate everybody watching wherever you are, if it's YouTube or if it's on Facebook or if it's on Rumble. But the home base, the hub, I've always said and will continue to, is Rumble. That's where I get into the chat and like to share thoughts and views from particularly those who are platform and channel supporters, and we'll share those and interact with those. If you are a local Unfiltered insider by way of the locals community, that's even better and more important to me. So thanks so much for that. Excuse me. We have a lot to get into today, so we're going to check in with the chatters in a short while here after we give them a chance to file in. I know my regulars are there. It's like a bar. Like I said, every show feels like Cheers. Whenever that opening scene to the bar is panned, the regulars are in the seats, and the regulars are always here. The key to the success, by the way, of a successful bar, restaurant, any other kind of business, or a podcast is bringing other people in, bringing in new customers, bringing in new clients, whatever it is that you want to call them. Bring them over, buy them a beer, and let them get comfortable. And that's what we're trying to do. So we're growing each and every day, and it helps when you bring folks with you. So chatters, good morning. I'll start talking to you directly in a couple of minutes, but we've got a few things that we've got to get to. Oh, one guest today. Dr. Everett Piper will be with us today. Dr. Piper is obviously phenomenal. He's one of my favorite people. I've had him on the air every week for probably going on a decade, going back to terrestrial radio and corporate radio days. But now that we're on the podcast, he does his own podcast too, by the way. If you haven't heard from Dr. Piper, check out The Rebellion. I'm going to be a guest on his show sometime very, very soon as well, by the way. But check that out. He'll be with me in about half an hour, about a half an hour. We'll call it about 7:30, 7:35. And looking forward to talking to him about a whole host of things, including his most recent column in the Washington Times, talking about why it is that Ketanji Brown Jackson gets away with being unable to define what a woman is, and yet completely assaults the dignity of women with their ridiculous questioning on the trans sports and private locker room spaces and so forth from last week. So Dr. Piper and I have kicked that around, as well as the anti-ICE recruitment for their rapid response teams, which is just this side of crazy, I guess. And we're going to talk to him about, a number of things. But that's coming up, like I said, in about a half an hour. I want to talk about Greenland. Take a look at the title that I gave the episode this morning, The Art of the Deal, Greenland Style. Did you think Trump was going to go to Davos this week and come away with a framework of a deal to actually have America take over and essentially run Greenland, to occupy it, to whatever it is that you want to call it, to use it, to make it an American territory, if not in name, in practice? Did you think that had a chance in hell? Or since we're talking about the ice block that is Greenland, did you think that had a snowball's chance in hell? I didn't, honestly. I also didn't want to say it wasn't serious, because I included this in the newsletter this past Sunday about Greenland, about how it is strategic, and about how wouldn't be the first time that the United States acquired a territory that's obviously not congruent with the lower 48. Two of them became states, and others became territories. And so it's not unusual. And some of the time, those territories were purchased or were, made part of a larger deal for security and so forth. I knew it was important, but I didn't think it had a chance. I thought most of Europe was united. They were ready to get into a tariff war with Trump over it. Trump said he was going to slap tariffs on the European nations that were trying to stop him from acquiring Greenland for, again, not just U.S. security purposes, national security, but world peace, world security. And I didn't think he was going to come away with that. He was going to slap tariffs on them if they didn't do it. They were going to start February 1st. They immediately announced they're going to, do reciprocal tariffs. And, a lot of people are freaking out. The stock market is getting jumpy, all of these things, what's going on. And I just thought we were ready for a long, protracted tariff war before anything got done. Instead, Trump goes there and plays his hand like just, I don't know, a grand master. What else do you want to say about it? And here we sit. So I just want to spend a minute or two talking about the importance of that. Like I said, we have a lot of other things too. If you read the description of today's show, today's plans. And by the way, this is where locals comes into play. What I want to start doing is setting a time at night, the night before, to find out what you want to talk about. You as a paid supporter of this channel and of a paid supporter in the locals community. I want to set a time every night to get into locals and have a group chat. I'm going to put a post up there and have kind of a group chat on what you want me to cover the next day, because the news, there's no shortage of it. It's a matter of paring it down and deciding what you want to focus on. Obviously, what's going on in Minnesota has been the lead story for the last 2 weeks on this show and around the world, maybe 3 weeks, around the country anyway. What's going on up there, the Somali fraud in Ohio. I mean, we have had a lot of things obviously happening here that are of great importance to us. But I want to, today I decided Greenland is going to be my lead. And I want to kind of make these decisions with my partners. Remember, that's who you are. You're a partner in all of this. You're not just an observer, not just a viewer. You're a partner in all of this. So I'm going to want my partners, the paid supporters who are unfiltered insiders and locals, to get with me every night. And we're going to have to set a time. And I don't know, maybe 9 o'clock is probably good. After we absorb everything. I like to watch Waters, and kind of get the latest from that vantage point. And maybe at 9 o'clock, we'll just kind of all hop in on a thread in locals that I'll run. And I just want to know what you guys want to do the next day. Let's plan that out together. I'll make that official when I decide on the time. I'm thinking 9, like I said. Hopefully that's not too late. If you're an early to bed and early to rise type person, God love you, then you won't be able to be a part of that, I guess. Or maybe we can do it earlier. I don't know. We can do it at 9. And then, when you wake up in the morning, you can add to it. We'll figure it out. I just want to involve you as much as possible in what we do every day. But for today, here's where I want to lead. Like I said, what Trump said in Davos yesterday, and talking about Greenland's importance, he kind of minimized it a little bit. He called it basically not even a land, not even a country. It's basically a giant sheet of ice. But it's not just like a frozen novelty on a map. And he's not just saying, I want this for the purposes of expansionism. I want to be like, Alexander the Great and expand, or the Roman Empire, expand the empire, expand the territories just so we can say we did it. It is so much more than that. Greenland is the most strategically important landmass in the Arctic, to say the least. It sits squarely between North America and Europe. And as Arctic ice continues to melt over the course of decades, new shipping lanes have opened up. Undersea resources have become accessible. And the region that Greenland is in, basically in that point between Europe and the United States and North America, really, it becomes a geopolitical battleground. Russia knows it. China knows it. And apparently nobody in the American media knows it, though. President Trump knows it, but the rest of the media apparently does not know it. And that's the bottom line here. Trump is so forward thinking on this. It's kind of like so many of the other things we talked about when he ran for office, for the second term, and when he got in. We talked about this back last January and February and so forth, and it's worth talking about again. Trump is probably going to be gone from this earth. He's certainly going to be gone from the White House before a lot of the. Sorry, I'm trying to load up a video for you here from Trump's Truth Social, which I'll get to. But President Trump is probably going to be long gone before many of the things that he has done can be realized. Meaning, a lot of the pieces on the chessboard aren't going to be moved until he's gone. What he's doing is for the future of the United States. He's doing it for his granddaughter, Kai. He's doing it for your children, my children, grandchildren, and so on and so forth. He's not even going to be around to absorb the credit here, which I think is extremely important. Russia is militarizing the Arctic, whether we believe it or not. They're reopening Cold War era bases. They're deploying hypersonic missiles. They're expanding its submarine operations. China, despite not being anywhere near the Arctic, has declared itself to be a near Arctic power. And they're pouring a ton of money into influence campaigns and infrastructure projects and resource extraction and so forth. And when authoritarians like, communist China and communist Russia move into a region, they don't, they're not there, again, for expansionism or for tourism. They're doing it for a reason. They're doing it for leverage. And today's Trump's Greenland framework is about denying that leverage. That's what this is about. That's what yesterday's negotiation and the framework that they've come away with that Trump is talking about. That's what it's about. It's about leverage. From a national security standpoint, Greenland is pretty much indispensable. That's what Trump has been trying to tell people really since the beginning of his term. We already operate an air base on Greenland. It's our northernmost military installation. But that's not enough, not even close to being enough, again, if Russia continues its expansion into the Arctic. And the ability for them to have such easy access to North America, it's beyond important. I saw something last night that I want to show you, and I wish I could remember. It was on Instagram. I like to give attribution to people for their posts and for their work and their commentary and so forth, but I don't really have the person who posted this. But I got this last night, or I saw this last night, and I thought, wow, what a phenomenal job this does of explaining why Greenland is important. This is from a show, a movie. Again, I don't have the details, but this is not an actual video of real people. But this is from a fictional movie, but it explains the importance of the Arctic from a national security standpoint better than anything I've seen. As you can see on the headline, this is why Donald Trump needs Greenland. Does this change your perspective? It didn't change mine because I already believed it. I already understood it, but it absolutely reinforces my perspective. So that's the first thing I want to do is share this with you to really get people to understand that Trump isn't out there trying to be a conqueror and trying to be, some sort of expansionist. He's there to protect and preserve our homeland and, quite frankly, our continent as well as bringing about and stabilizing world peace. So let me see if this will play, and we'll react to it on the other side. You can tell me what you think. All right, audio, where are you, audio? Hold on a second. This is big.
This is where we found their Lasharic submarine, which we noticed only because it caught fire. We have no idea how many more there are, but we think they're around here, 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 and here.
All right, I'm going to restart this because I think it's caught up in the middle of it. This is really important to hear from the beginning. And it's kind of weird when playing back Instagram, they don't give you that timeline to, to drag, to move or advance, a video. So I'm going to reboot this page or restart this page and try to bring this up from the beginning. All right. And now we got all kinds of things happening here. All right. Now let's see if we can play this. Got to get down here and unmute it. And here we go. Let's see.
The quickest way for Russia to penetrate our naval defenses is steaming from the Arctic to the North Atlantic. This is our military presence in the Arctic. These were Russia's Arctic military positions in 1995. Today, infantry, naval, radar, search and rescue, air defense, the biggest buildup since the Soviets fell. This is where we lost Russia's most sophisticated submarines in the North Atlantic for 3 weeks. This is where we found their Lasharic submarine, which we noticed only because it caught fire. We have no idea how many more there are, but we think they're around here, 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 and here. This is Cregan. You know what Cregan is?
A nuclear submarine base in Scotland.
All of the UK's nuclear weaponry is housed at Cregan. It's what makes them one of the 9 nuclear powers. Also, it's the only base in Europe where we can dock our nuclear subs. It's the last place we have any hope of detecting a Russian sub before it's in the vast Atlantic barreling toward New York. Cregan is target 1 in the European theater of war. The Scots hate nukes, and they hate English overreach, but they really hate having a bullseye on their heads. If Scotland had gone independent,
They would have closed the base.
in a second. When we took our forces out of Iceland, Russian sub-activity skyrocketed, as did air incursions. When we pulled our combat brigades from Europe, anyone?
Russia annexed Crimea.
Is there a universe in which the United States could afford to lose the base in Scotland?
No. But you went to Margaret Royland.
So did you.
I didn't ask her to blow up a ship.
Neither did I. It was supposed to be...
Some bent metal and nobody dead. So it's not your fault?
It's entirely my fault. You think I'm suggesting it's not my fault? I own it, and I will carry it, but I will not let it tear down the president.
That sounds convenient to me. That sounds like a reason to bury it.
I don't give a shit what it sounds like to you. I can name every one of the 43 people who died in this debacle. I couldn't do that if it was 40,000 or 40 million vaporized in a nuclear conflict. This is my game board. The whole goddamn thing. This is yours. Keep your eyes on your own paper.
All right. So that's it. That's what I wanted to share. I don't know what show that is. I don't know what movie that is. I don't know who that person is supposed to be. Does anybody in the chat know? If anybody wants to explain that to me, maybe I can rely on you for that. Does anybody know what that show is? Most people probably do. I'm just a little bit out of it, I suppose. But whatever that show is, it laid out better than anything that I've seen, anything I've seen anywhere, why Greenland mattered to Donald Trump. Now, their fictional scenario about what got blown up or what got attacked and what got burned and blah, blah, blah is irrelevant. What is relevant is the points on the map that she was talking about and Russia's easiest access to get to North America and to threaten or destroy, quite frankly, the United States or North America. It's and China as well. That's what this is all about. So whoever that woman was, she's Trump. She's Trump in real life. Knowing the region, understanding what the danger is there and why this had to happen. So, so Russia is, militarizing the Arctic like we've talked about. They're reopening their Cold War era bases. They're deploying these hypersonic missiles. They're expanding submarine operations. And like I said, China is, China's not near it, obviously, but they have described themselves or, trying to define themselves as being, a near Arctic power. And the leverage that Donald Trump has now by gaining this, if indeed the framework of a deal becomes an actual deal. And he did say that when he was in Davos. He said, if this whole thing is instituted, if the agreement is reached. Right now, they have the framework of an agreement, but not an actual one. So if that happens, the leverage that we will have now over the two biggest geopolitical rivals and dangers, nuclear powers, Russia and China, they're at an extreme disadvantage. So this is from a national security standpoint, it's indispensable. I said this before, early missile defense, early warnings, space surveillance, Arctic command and control, owning or formally securing as a U.S. territory or whatever we call what we have over Greenland through a strategic acquisition like this locks in our dominance of the Arctic corridor rather than letting somebody else dominate it. And just know for a fact that somebody is going to do that. Denmark isn't going to be able to hold on to Greenland and protect it. I mean, what did they do? They deployed 14 dog sleds or something like that in order to protect Greenland from U.S. forces. If Trump decided to send in forces to say, no, we're taking Greenland, which of course he was never going to do. And he made that very, very clear. But Denmark wasn't going to be able to hold it. Whatever tenuous claim to Greenland they actually had anyway. So it's going to be occupied or controlled or heavily influenced or whatever by somebody. It can either be by Russia or China or can be that by the United States. And let's talk about NATO. What happened, what we saw in Davos too, was NATO leaders trying to play tough guy, trying to stand up to Donald Trump and trying to say, we as a bloc refuse to let you do this. It will disband NATO. And Trump looked them in the eye and said, if the United States isn't in NATO, there is no NATO. You want us to pull every nickel from NATO? You want us to pull our own influence from NATO? Okay, let us know how that works for you. You will be at the mercy. Western Europe will be at the mercy of the same geopolitical foes that we have. I mean, in all seriousness, the idea that they were going to be able to play hardball here is just ridiculous. The Arctic is NATO's weak spot. It's like their soft underbelly, right? And Greenland obviously is the keystone of that. So a stronger Greenland, a stronger American position or occupation or whatever you want to call it of Greenland doesn't weaken NATO. It fortifies NATO. It strengthens NATO. It closes response times. It ensures that the alliance, that NATO, not Moscow, not Beijing, controls, the high ground of the region, and basically it allows us to be stronger. And what does President Trump say every single time? Peace comes from strength. When we have that positioning, it completely disincentivizes any of the geopolitical enemies, the biggest world powers like Russia and China that we have to deal with. It disincentivizes them from trying anything because we have such a bigger and stronger advantage now. And again, peace through strength. That's what Trump wants. And for, decades, nobody else has talked about this. American leaders, including Republican leaders, George Bush, George H.W. Bush, Reagan, even through the decades, nobody else has talked about this. Nobody else has at least thought to act on this. Trump comes in here and does just the opposite of everybody else. He looked like, 30, 40, 50 years ahead. Like I said, long after he's gone from this earth and the rest of us as well, and saying, where's the next conflict going to emerge? Where's the next attack going to come from? And the answer is very, very likely going to impact and be impactful of the Arctic and who is controlling it. History's got a funny way. This is what I love about history. Of rehabilitating ideas that were once mocked, ideas that turn out to be right. When the Arctic becomes the central threat of global competition, people are finally going to understand what Trump was doing with Greenland. He wasn't buying, this bit. What did he call it? He's called it an Iceland. He didn't call it Iceland, which is a different place, but he said it's ice more than it is land. So it's a big sheet of ice for the most part. But it's strategically important. He wasn't buying a big block of freaking ice. He was buying security for the United States, strength for the United States, and peace for the world. That's why this Greenland deal was so indispensable. And I hope that people understand that. Because the left is going to continue to do what they do. I put this in the description of today's episode. The left likes to consider Trump just all about himself. How does it benefit me? How does it benefit my brand? How does it benefit my companies? Whatever, that he's selfish and narcissistic. He is narcissistic, but most extraordinarily successful people are. There is a belief in self and a love of self that I can do this better than others that most super successful people have. All right. Narcissism isn't always a negative term. Taken to an extreme, it can be, but this is proof positive of selflessness, not selfishness. Selflessness. He's not going to be around to see, probably, God willing, that we have a need to, militarize, Greenland over the course of the next 3 years that he's president. And have to use it to fend off some sort of an attack from Russia or from China or from anybody else. God forbid we have to. And it's very, very unlikely we will. That strength through peace thing, or a peace through strength thing, really works. But the payoff might not come for another decade. It might not come for a decade after that. Trump ain't going to be around to see what he did and how he helped protect and preserve the United States and North America. But he's doing it anyway. It's totally selfless. And I think that's just an important thing for people to know. All right, let me get into the chat room this morning and see what is happening. Obviously, we appreciate everybody jumping in and weighing in on what's going on. Sorry, my screen is kind of glitchy on me right now. I'm trying to refreshen it here a little bit. Or I guess refreshen is not a word. I think I made up a word. It's not refreshened. It's refreshed or it's freshened. Let's see who's in the house. SRL got in first, it looks like. Macro Mia is in. DD Bag of Donuts. Good morning. Nana Cheryl is here. Roz is here. RH Ron is in the house. I got Charlie, as always. Good morning, Charlie. Did you tear down any signs lately? Hey, now that you posted it, Charlie, can I share it? Why? Why the hell not, right? Let me pop into Facebook for a second. Charlie, who is the politically incorrect mechanic, Charlie sent me a video of him by way of text message. I guess it would have been Tuesday night. He sent me this Tuesday night, a video of him seeing something he didn't like and doing something about it. And I loved it. And I asked him, are you going to post that? And he said, nah, because somebody will probably rat me out and cause trouble for him. He's a business owner in Flakewood. And I said, okay, so I'll let it be, because I wanted to play it here. I wanted to put it up on the podcast. And so I obviously respected his wishes. And yesterday I didn't do that. And then what does he do? He goes ahead and posts it anyway. And he texted me last night. Oh, by the way, I caved in and posted it. So yeah, so let's do this. I'm going to share this with you, and hopefully you can see this well enough. Let me enlarge it. So this is Charlie Kalani's Facebook page. Charlie is, again, the politically incorrect mechanic in the chat, for those wondering. So let me make this a little bit larger. And is that working? Okay, that might be too large now, and I got to navigate my way over. Yeah, that might be too large. I think that's the best I can do. Anyway, the picture here, if you can see my cursor moving on the screen, is an overpass over a highway. I don't know if it's at a 90 or 71 or where it is. And Charlie said, this is what he texted me too. Saw this on my way to work yesterday. Took care of it last night. And I guess the part 2 of this is being revealed even as we speak by the video on the right side of the screen. Here we go. Here it is. So Charlie saw that on the way into work, and on the way home from work, he stopped. He took a little detour. He got up on that overpass. He parked his truck, and now we'll let it play. There's the sign, and I'll tell you what it says in a moment. And there goes our politically incorrect mechanic. Get this thing the hell out of here. Get this stupid, ridiculous, leftist BS socialist supporting message out of here. Charlie going to work. It's not private property, by the way. Whoever it was hung that up on a public fence over a public roadway, a public overpass. So it's not like he did anything and violated any laws or anything. But did he put the I thought you did a close-up of the image, Charlie. Well, maybe you only sent that to me. But the politically incorrect mechanic, and let me just look on my phone then, because I thought he sent a picture of what the sign said actually up close so I can read it. And yeah, there it is. I don't know why you didn't post this part, Charlie. The close-up is you had it laid in the snow. What it says is, free Maduro, arrest Trump, CLE united against war. Okay? That's what the sign said. Again, Charlie, I wish there was an image of it. Charlie, you got an image of it? You're in the chat. But yeah, he laid it out in the snow so you could see it better than that dark image in the first frame of the post there. But it says free Maduro, which again, the same leftist a-holes who hold no kings rallies. No kings means no tyrants, no authoritarians, no dictators, any of those kinds of things, right? That's what it means. I'm sorry, I'm just checking in. There's the green room. Okay, Dr. Piper is ready to go. But they love Maduro. They hate Trump. They love somebody who is starving out the people of Venezuela. They love the guy who succeeded Hugo Chavez in turning what was once, the richest country in the region because of their expansive oil reserves, where people were living happily, and Venezuela was almost a destination spot in the region, to a place where poverty now is so widespread, starvation is so widespread, that people, and I've used this example before, it's not hyperbole, it's not just one of those statements that you make. Let me kill the image here. It's not just one of those things that you say for the sake of shock. People were roasting rats over open barrel fires in the streets for food. They're eating just about anything they could find. That's what Venezuela devolved into. Trump liberated the Venezuelans, arrested Maduro, by the way, for whom there was a warrant for his arrest issued by the Biden Department of Justice 2 years earlier, 3 years earlier. So Biden had put a $25 million bounty on, not a bounty, but a reward for his arrest and for his capture for Maduro. Trump raised that to $50 million last year in his term. So it's not like there was some sort of a divide politically between the right and the left, the conservatives and the liberals over Maduro. Everybody wanted him. The difference between the left and the right is the left talks about it and Trump goes and gets it done. That's just the reality of it. That's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. It's the same thing with deportation. It's the same exact thing. The left wrote and passed a law in 1996 saying mass deportation should be carried out. You know who signed that law? Think about who was president in 1996. Bill Clinton signed that law. An expansive bill demanding much more widespread deportation of illegal aliens. That was what Bill Clinton wanted. And he did it to a certain extent. George W. Bush, Barack Obama did it to a certain extent as well. And nobody had a problem, really. Donald Trump is doing the same thing that law gave him the power to do, gives him the power to do. And suddenly it's World War III. Donald Trump, how dare you? How dare you act on a law that's on the books, that was bipartisan in nature, that a Democrat president actually signed? How dare you take advantage of the expansive powers given to the federal government to carry out a mass deportation task force? Trump does what they talk about. And then they blame him for doing it. It's bizarre. And that's the case with Maduro. So anyway, the point being, the Democrats, the Republicans, the left and the right, everybody agreed Maduro's got to go. Maduro's got to go. Trump goes in to get Maduro, and it's, hey, free Maduro, because Trump did it. It's a reflex for them. It's like you go into the doctor and they tap your knee and your knee jerks up. It's a literal reflex. Trump does something and their reflex is, their knee pops up, and fascist. What? Trump did something, no kings. Trump did something else. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it be the proverbial cure for cancer or whatever it is. If Trump reveals it, they will. I read somebody framed it a little bit better yesterday, day before, whatever it was. I don't know, where you scroll so much and you see so many things. Somebody said, if Trump actually announced a cure for cancer, leftists would swallow uranium. They would, that's how demented they really, really are. And that's what TDS really, really looks like. It's like the Tom Homan thing. Tom Homan works with ICE and Homeland Security in 2013, 14, 15 under Barack Obama. And Tom Homan gets a medal from Barack Obama. Tom Homan continues to work on deportations, working with the Homeland Security and ICE in 2025 and 26 under Donald Trump, and he gets death threats. Same thing, same job, same person, same results. Trump, if he's answering to Trump, reflexively, then Homan is evil. Trump answers to Obama, and hey, here's a medal. It's sickening, is what it is. All right, let's bring in our guest now. He has been a regular Thursday guest of mine for many, many years. We have been trying to keep that going, although sometimes the days bounce around since we started our live stream podcast. But it has been a very long time that we have been talking with Dr. Everett Piper, looking to him for advice, for guidance and leadership, and he brings it to us each and every week. Dr. Piper, live from Tulsa. Good morning.
Good morning, Bob. Can you hear me okay?
You sound perfect.
Good.
Got you 5x5 on screen, and you sound clear. So thank you. I appreciate it. So real quick, Dr. Piper, before we get into the stuff that you and I plan to talk about, I had no expectations at all for him to go into Davos and come out of there with virtually a deal to let the United States acquire, run, occupy, control, build bases on, whatever. We already have one base there, but I had no idea that he was going to come away with a framework for a deal to acquire Greenland. What's your takeaway from that?
Let me ask you a question. How likely is the deal in your mind? Do you think this is viable?
Well, I think he went there threatening tariffs if they don't go along with it on Western Europe, and Western Europe threatened tariffs back, and Trump threatened to completely defund NATO. Without the United States funding NATO, there is no NATO. They have no protection at all against Russian expansion, which they did into Ukraine and did previously under Obama into Crimea. They have no choice here. So I think if they came away with a framework for a deal, I think the likelihood is probably 90% that it's going to get done, because they cannot afford to let Trump just pull funds from NATO.
Well, with regard to Greenland, let's all acknowledge, and I'm sure you've probably covered it, that this discussion of the United States acquiring Greenland, either as a state or a territory, has been going on for well over 100 years. People need to understand that. This is not new. I don't have the list of the presidents who have considered it prior to Donald Trump, but it goes back to the 1800s, the early 1800s, in terms of this discussion and why we need it. We need it today even more than we've ever needed it, because of the threat of Russia in the North Atlantic. There's our defense relies on us being able to detect and deter any military attack, any violent aggression that would come across the North Atlantic from Europe, across the North Atlantic toward the United States. And without Greenland as a base, we would be greatly hindered and handicapped in doing so. So, do we need Greenland? We've known that the United States needs Greenland for decades, if not 100, 150 years. That's a fact. So Donald Trump's discussion and his desire is not new. Now, how do you get it? I don't know. I honestly don't. What are we going to do if Greenland says, hell no? Denmark says, absolutely not. Are we going to go to war? Are we going to take up arms to take Greenland?
He made that clear. He made that clear in Davos. No, we're not going to do that.
What do you do if you're not going to take up arms?
Well, they're going to put economic pressure on Europe. They're going to put economic pressure. Again, the tariff idea, they're going to put pressure on them. We're going to, significantly inhibit their ability to export to their largest customer, the United States, and do it that way. It's the same way he's gotten most of the things that he has wanted so far, and that is using our economic might. And quite frankly, again, the fact that the UN and NATO, two organizations, we have the Alliance of NATO and we have the United Nations, that rely on U.S. funding. I don't want to say almost entirely, but we are so far outsized in our contributions to those things. If they want them to continue at all, they have to make the United States happy. And that means they have to listen to somebody like Donald Trump, who is the big dog on the block. Did you see the leader of Finland talked about, we don't need the United States. We can protect Greenland ourselves. And he was mocked roundly. And then about 11 minutes later, in one of the panel discussions there on stage at the conference, the moderator confronted the Finnish president and said, "You said you could defend Greenland without the U.S.'s help." And he said, "Well, no. Those weren't my words. Not
didn't
exactly.
really mean that.
They were his words, but he had 10 minutes to think about it, and other people probably got in his ear and said, "We can't do anything without the United States. What's the matter with you?" So that's why, Dr. Piper, I get that it's been talked about for 100 years or whatever, and through many, many administrations, but nobody else has acted on it for one reason or another. This is the first guy that is willing to play the game the right way. And that is to say, you want to protect, Europe, Western Europe, North America without our involvement. Good luck to you. It would take probably 3 days for them to say, we can't do this without the United States. Give them Greenland. So it's just nobody else has acted on it. So I feel very confident, honestly, 90% or more, that by the time, it might not be tomorrow, because the framework of the deal is all they got. Dr. Piper, it may be 6 months from now that everything actually gets activated, or it may be a year from now. But I think that Trump is not going to leave his 47 presidency without that happening.
Here's my concern. Everything you said, let's just say, fine, that's all good. And I don't disagree with anything you just said. What I'm concerned about is the midterm elections. And if this becomes a distraction to the extent that the economy slows down, because people are concerned about this particular conflict causing a disruption in some of the economic treaties that were on the table, and in fact were essentially good with the European Union in terms of being, Trump's threat of tariffs against the European Union worked. We all know that. And as the result of those threats, we had a situation where there were treaties that were on the table, ready to be signed, if not fully active, that were beneficial to the United States. Everybody calms down, realizes the economy is going to be good, everything heats up, we're going in the right direction, and then oops, we hit the brakes again, or we run into a roadblock because we've got all these concerns about acquiring Greenland and how we're going to do it. What I'm concerned about is the midterm elections, and I hope this doesn't hurt us rather than help us, because if the Republicans lose the midterm elections, a lot of what you're talking about, you can just forget it, because once the Democrats get control again of the House and the Senate, Trump isn't going to get anything done. Other than by executive order, because they won't approve. If he came out and said, I'm in favor of breathing to stay alive, they would impeach him for saying it. They would hold their breath until they die and pass out, and they would impeach Trump for saying, I'm in favor for breathing to stay alive. So if we lose the midterm elections, we're going to be having very different discussions.
Well, you're right, and we could say that about any policy that he is advancing, whether it be Greenland or foreign affairs or domestic. All of it is over if we don't win the midterms, and we know that is a very, very, very high bar to clear because historically, the party that just took over in the White House loses the midterms, 2 years later, and that's kind of how things have balanced out through the years. So it's a very high bar to clear in the first place. But the one thing that I would say is, the one big beautiful bill that was finally passed after all of that, angst that we had over the course of the last summer, it just kicked in. What is today? The 22nd, 21 days ago, when there is so much more money in the economy because no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. When people have more money in their pockets, they spend it. And when they spend it, the story. I mean, this is the way capitalism works. When they spend it, they need to replenish stock. We need to make more stuff. We need to hire more workers to make more stuff. The economy, I think, is going to be on a huge, huge roll. It grew the GDP at 4.3% last quarter. Experts are looking at 5 or higher, 5% growth now that this is kicking in. So I think anything, that might come, any sort of, backlash or whatever that might be the result of this Greenland negotiation, I think it's going to be offset because I think the wheels are in motion for a massive economic year, lower prices, better jobs, higher wages over the course of the next 10 months. And that's going to be the key to winning the midterms. So at least that's my read on it. And I hope that's the case.
I hope and pray you're right. I mean, obviously, I'm anxious. I'm sure you are too. We're all anxious to see what happened in Virginia, what happened in New York City, what happened with essentially these radical, they're not even Democrats. I mean, they call themselves Democrats. They're not. They're socialists. They're neo-Marxists. They're communists. And they're now running New York City. They're now running the state of Virginia. You've seen the list of legislation and executive orders that's coming out of Virginia right now. It's deplorable. It's awful. And if we continue to go that direction politically, this isn't going to be just happening in Virginia. It's going to be knocking on the door of Ohio. It's going to be knocking on the door of Oklahoma. We've got to recognize that a lot of the division we see right now within the conservative movement, MAGA, the Republican movement, with Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and all the stuff that's going on that's dividing the party. We've got to recognize the need to come together for the sake of a midterm victory. So do I have any concerns about Greenland? As a strategic move to have it for the defense of the United States? No. I mean, this is something, there's wisdom there that's well over 100, 150 years old. I don't dispute that at all. I just don't want it to distract from a victory strategy and an ultimate victory during the midterms because we have to have it.
Yeah, we really do. And it's a survival situation. I want to play a quick video for you, Dr. Piper, to get your response to. This was actually shared by President Trump on his Truth Social account. So it's a 90-second video, 99 seconds actually. But we're talking, you mentioned if we lose the midterms, what happens in the final 2 years of the Trump presidency, and you are, of course, correct. It will be a disaster. The Democrats will do nothing but impeach and investigate and impeach, not just Trump, but every member of the cabinet.
Everybody.
Yep, every single one of them. Noem and Rubio and Hegseth, they'll all face their own investigations and impeachment. Legislation will be, slowed to a crawl. No legislation will get done at all. So you're right about that. And the goal here, of course, is to reverse what Trump has just done, which is seal the border. We now have 8 consecutive months of 0.0 illegal aliens being released into the interior of the United States. They are being caught wherever they're coming across and turned right around and removed. No one has been released or paroled into the United States. It's extraordinary. And now the deportation is on, which should be tripled by the end of this year because of the massive numbers of ICE agents that were hired, again, because of the funding in the One Big Beautiful Bill. I bring all of that up now to talk about the midterms and to talk about what single party rule looks like and how the Democrats had planned to do this with massive illegal immigration, the open borders policy. So Trump just shared this, and I think that is reason enough for us to play it and react to it. So Dr. Piper, watch closely. I think it's on the screen now. And everybody else too. This is on Trump's Truth Social as of last night. And I think it's spot on. Here we go.
The Democrat open borders plan to entrench single-party rule, explained in under 2 minutes. 1. Flood the country with untold millions of illegals by land, sea, and air from all over the world, enough to eclipse the populations of 36 individual U.S. states so far. 2. Prioritize the needs of these millions of non-citizens over the needs of the American citizen, with free flights, buses, hotels, meals, and phones, ensuring their loyalty to the political party that imported them. 3. Keep them in the country at all costs, even when they commit violent crime like murder and rape. Attack the language used to describe the criminals, as opposed to the criminals themselves. Slander critics as racist. 4. Ensure their privileges are made irrevocable with city and state sanctuary laws that act as population magnets. Codify permanent status and ensure non-cooperation with ICE. 5. Count the non-citizens in the census that will determine congressional apportionment in the House of Representatives. As of now, that would equal 13 extra congressional districts, a tremendous amount of electoral power. 6. Wage a massive, heavily funded lawfare campaign to change state voting laws that legalize mass mail-in ballots, no signature verification, and no proof of citizenship requirements, making it nearly impossible to prove voter fraud. 7. Lock in the permanent voting majority with campaign promises of lavish benefits and permanent privileges, enshrining generational fealty to the Democrat Party. 8. Win elections. 9. Entrenched single-party rule has been achieved. The best part? Your tax dollars are paying for it.
All right, Dr. Piper, your response.
Spot on. We can see it happening before our very eyes. And the fact that we watch this as an American people, and yet 49, let's just say 48%. I'll be generous. I'll say that less than the majority, that it's 47, 48, maybe 49% of the American electorate believes that that strategy is good. Let's say that they're in the minority, and therefore we, the people that can still think logically and recognize the evil for what it is, we're not the frog in the kettle. The water is boiling, and we actually still have enough wherewithal to get out of the boiling water and not be cooked as the result of it. Let's just say that the majority is the sane and the minority is the insane that actually either ignores that reality or is part of it and actually wants to implement it. The bottom line is we're still a 50-50 country, essentially. The point I'm trying to make here in a garbled way is we're a 50-50 country, and there's a 47, 48, 49% chance that AOC could be president of the United States. If we don't get off our butt and pay attention to this stuff and come together unified and make sure that we win the midterms and we continue to win on the basis of constitutional sanity, recognizing that truth matters, men are men and women are women, and these constant lies that we're being told in our public schools from our children at the youngest ages on up through, and it's not just the sexual garbage, it is the political garbage as well. We're being told over and over again that white privilege is real, that this church in Minneapolis is evil simply because they were preaching the gospel, that these radicals enter into their church, they invade the privacy of a worship service, violating federal law, and they're screaming in the service itself, privileged pigs. You people are white privileged pigs. That's one of the things that was quoted by these radicals. If we don't realize that this stuff is going to happen in Columbus, Ohio, in Cincinnati, in Oklahoma City, in Tulsa, in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, if we don't recognize that this stuff is coming to a community near you, it's coming to yours, then we could have AOC as our president. We need to wake up and recognize that this just isn't a veiled threat from radical conservatives, that you've got to pay attention to what's going on in your own backyard and vote for real, honest, constitutional conservatives that are going to honor your freedoms rather than take them away. All this is self-evident. I haven't said anything that you haven't said and everybody else hasn't said 1,000 times over. What people need to realize is this is real.
Yeah, exactly right. And I'm so glad in your response there. And I hope for people who didn't know some of that and some of the reason why the open borders policies are for anybody who still thinks that this is about compassion. There are people in terrible countries that are being persecuted, and it's our responsibility. It says so on the base of the statue, bring me, you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, those yearning to breathe free, blah, blah, blah. It is not about compassion. It is not about mercy. It is not about grace. It is about power. That's what that video showed. It's extraordinarily important that people understand that. And in your two of the things you said in your response, I want to talk about now. We were planning on talking about anyway. You mentioned that church. That pastor was preaching the gospel in the church in St. Paul on Sunday when Don Lemon and his cadre of lunatics decided to go in there and disrupt and create complete chaos, chanting ridiculous things. And now there is talk that Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, in whom I lose trust a little bit more, I think, every day, that there's ever going to be arrests made, but on a variety of things. But they have said that the FACE Act is absolutely in play here, and that all of those who went inside violated people's right to their religious freedom by interrupting their service in such a way. What do you think is going to happen there? Do you think we're going to see accountability for Don Lemon? Do you think we're going to see accountability for any of the individuals who can be identified, who went in and basically created chaos in a service?
I actually do. I think there will be accountability. I think Donald Trump is going to put pressure on the Justice Department to hold these people accountable to federal law. Whether or not that'll be good or bad for Don Lemon, I don't know. He'll become a martyr. Don Lemon may enjoy jail for a variety of different reasons. I don't know. So I think some people will be held accountable. I'm optimistic with regard to Pam Bondi's actions, the Department of Justice, and Donald Trump there. What I would say, let's talk about what we should do. If this happened at your church, what should you do? If it happened at mine, what should the congregation, the pastor, the deacons, the people in charge of, what should they do? I've had several on my social media say, well, you need to have armed security. And if you've already got it, you need to have better armed security and more. I agree that we need to secure our churches. And if somebody comes into our churches and does something violent, pulls out a gun, starts shooting people, then somebody else in the church needs to be prepared to take them out and put them down. I agree with that. However, I don't think the solution to what took place in this church in Minneapolis would have been for armed security to take out their guns and shoot people. I mean, obviously that would have, no pun intended, backfired on the congregation and the church for doing so. I was on a show yesterday, somebody else's, and I said, what I did when I was president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University is I befriended the local sheriff. I befriended the local chief of police. Every year at Oklahoma Wesleyan, we had a dinner where we honored the men in blue. We invited the entire police department, sheriff and police department, and the fire department. In addition to that, we invited them to come out, and we made them the guests of honor at a fundraiser. In other words, I made sure that the sheriff and the chief of police liked me. We provided our campus free of charge for training. They would come out and do terrorist preparation training on our campus, and they would involve our students and us in some of that training. Lockdown procedures, for example. If there is a terrorist attack on a given piece of property, what do you do? Where do you go? Where do you hide? How do you lock down? We did that on our campus. Now, what's my point here? Bob, my point here is if something would have happened in my church, at my campus, or whatever, those police would have been out there in a second because they liked me. They liked our campus. We were partners together in doing good for Bartlesville, Oklahoma. So my encouragement to anybody listening to this show right now is befriend the local police. Even if you're not the pastor or the priest, if you're a deacon, if you're a lay leader in your church, then take the sheriff out to coffee, take him out to breakfast, figure out a way to thank these people. And then when you need their help, they'll be there in a second. Now, will this work in Minneapolis? Maybe not, because the place is so far gone. I don't know if the chief of police or the sheriff is a Somali, and therefore he doesn't want to have anything to do with you. In some places, it may be too far gone. But in 99% of the towns, the colleges, the churches, the campuses, the communities across the nation, I would argue that the solution is think people. Stop saying, oh, I'm going to pull out my gun and shoot Don Lemon if he comes to my church, because you're not. You're not going to do that. What you need is the sheriff.
Nor should you do that.
Pardon me?
Nor should you do that. Not only are you not going to, that is not the answer. And, and nobody should ever suggest such a thing.
You're the bad guy when that happens. And I've seen so many people on social media, these guys, I don't know if it's Macho Oklahoma or whatever, but that's what they think that we should do. No, it's not going to work. you have to think, you have to be smarter than that. You have to think. And if the sheriff is your friend, if the chief of police is your friend, then they're going to help you. So that's the solution for 99% of us right now. Maybe there are a couple communities that are too far gone, but most of us aren't. Does that make any sense?
It makes great sense. Absolutely. And the one thing about try to make friends with your local police and so on and so forth and get them to help you. It worked for you, obviously. I don't think it will work up there. And I think in most of these sanctuaries, I mean, maybe not even most, maybe this one is the worst of the worst. It's kind of weird that this is happening in the same place as it happened 5 years ago with the George Floyd thing. But the police in this particular jurisdiction in Minneapolis or the Twin Cities, they take their sanctuary status very, very seriously. They have allowed people on their watch outside to be assaulted, to be attacked, to be intimidated, to be harassed, and have their personal space violated with these face-to-face encounters and screaming Nazi this and everything that. For crying out loud, there were cameras, scores of them around that federal vehicle a week ago, in which they hooked up a tow line to another vehicle to pull that weapons locker out of a federal vehicle, and then watched as they tried to smash it with hammers and whatever else to try to break it open to get whatever is inside of it. All of this is on brightly lit cameras with a massive crowd around. Don't tell me that police officers didn't see it happening and stood by and let it happen. I think they are under strict orders from Mayor Jacob Fry, and maybe to an extent from Governor Tim Walz, who is, of course, in league with Fry, to not uphold the law in these cases. I don't think if that pastor could have, be best buddies and having coffee once a week with those officers. They're under strict orders. I think this is just from observational perspective. They're under strict orders to let it happen, save somebody actually being beaten in the street by a pack of people, and you see it. You just need to kind of stand by and watch it happen. Remember, they were under strict orders 5 years ago to let the police precinct burn down. There were officers there trying to defend the precinct against the masses, of marauding, savage rioters who were trying to tear it down because of George Floyd. And Tim Walz gave the order. Evacuate, let it go. Let the animals actually have the police precinct and burn it to the ground. So, I think police officers in that particular jurisdiction are just in a very bad way, Dr. Piper.
I agree with you. And that's why I said I think 99% of our communities across the United States my strategy would probably work, but there's a handful that may be too far gone.
Yeah.
Minneapolis being perhaps foremost among them. Now, here's the thing. One of the things that Donald Trump's 2-minute video that you just showed with regard to what the socialist left is doing to our country and their actual strategy for success, I think one of the things that could have been included in there is they have intentionally run good police officers out of their jobs. They've made it so ugly and so difficult with their defund the police movements, the entire thing that started in Minneapolis and now it's sweeping across the country. They look for any opportunity, whether it be Renee Good, whether it be Rodney King, whether it be anybody else, right? They look for any opportunity to demonize the police. And what happens? Good police say, enough's enough. I've had it with this. I've got my 25 years in. I'm going to retire. I'm going to go do something else. And then who replaces them? Some Somali immigrant is going to replace them, who's going to do the bidding of the leftist governor, the leftist mayor, and the leftist attorney general of that state. That's what's happening in Minneapolis right now. So that's another strategy of the left. It's to take over the police department. And I would argue Barack Obama knew what he was doing when he allowed these communities to burn and he demonized police or allowed the left to demonize them. And then when there's a vacancy in the police department, you fill that vacancy with somebody that's sympathetic to your socialist left agenda. Barack Obama did it in the military too. The military has changed dramatically as the result of that. Thank God for Donald Trump. He's trying to reverse those things. And in some cases, he's successful in doing so. And I think that's why the left is so up in arms. They recognize that Donald Trump sees them for what they are, and they are threatened by his corrections. That's why they're angry right now, and that's why they're doubling down in their violent resistance. Now, how do we stop this in Minneapolis? I don't know. It's Martin Luther King Day, or at least it was a couple days ago. Let's call it Martin Luther King Week. Now, I'm not a huge fan of MLK for some reasons. I think he was much more Marxist than people recognize or want to admit. But
Completely.
some of his rhetoric is good. The letter from the Birmingham jail, for example. Did he believe it? Did he mean it? I don't know. But if you take it for what it says, it's a good letter. His I Have a Dream speech was a good speech because he talked about judging people by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. Did he believe it? I don't know. But the rhetoric was good. And one of the things he did that was both rhetorical and active was the passive resistance, the nonviolent resistance, where he would stand in the face of a violent crowd that hated him. And he would tell his activists to follow his lead. Don't return violence for violence, because when the cameras are on you, people are going to see you as the good guy rather than bad guy if you stand in the face of these water cannons and take it. If these police dogs are ripping at your clothing, that's not going to be good for the police and the people that are attacking you. It's going to be good for our cause. It was a strategic move to be passive. We may learn some lessons from that in terms of the way we need to react when they come into our churches, when they start doing stupid things. Recognize the camera's on us. There are more cameras today than there ever were back in MLK's day because everybody and their brother has a camera in their hand. So if we can use that to our advantage and learn some lessons from his strategy, we may actually prevail accordingly.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point that you make, Dr. Piper, and I'm glad you made it. I don't want to dive too much further into that because we could go for a very long time on who and what MLK was, and why every year it is. We just continue to honor those good things about him that you pointed out that are legitimate, and whether we believe them or not, they were positive in their own things. That's the only thing that is ever talked about. His history as a Marxist and as a faux Christian, he was never a Christian. Those things nobody wants to talk
I agree.
about. We could do that. And I don't want to do that right now. What I do want to do is this, though. I want to talk about, because you mentioned being able to tell the difference between reality and fantasy, between men and women, between boys and girls. This is your column this week in the Washington Times. The bizarre, by the way, if you're not, for our viewers, if you are not reading Dr. Piper, you should do that. WashingtonTimes.com. He always posts his article, which runs every Sunday, right, Dr. Piper? New one on Sunday?
Every weekend comes. It's published on their website Sunday afternoon, but it's actually in their hard copy newspaper on Mondays. And I would say this: you're not in the business of promoting, but I get a lot of people say, "Well, I'm not going to read that because it's loaded up with advertisements, and I don't want to subscribe." For I think it's like $50 a year, you can subscribe to the Washington Times. It's a good source of conservative news. And Bob, if people don't pay you for what you do, if they don't pay me for what I do, if they don't pay the Washington Times or whatever other conservative voice for what they do, they're going to go away. People need to support you financially because you can't afford to do this for nothing. People need to support the Washington Times and whatever other conservative voice you have out there, because if you don't, they're going to go away. That you need to support these people. So I'm sorry to do that pitch there, and I'm not just doing it for the Washington Times. I'm doing it for you. The fact that conservatives who consume information, and we're very good at it, we're very good consumers of information. We want it for free all the time. We've got to recognize you got to write a check every now and then, or these people are going to go away because they can't afford to just do it for. You don't do this just to hear yourself talk. I don't do this just to hear myself talk. You have to write a check every once in a while, people.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. And I'm really glad you realize that and recognize that, because I know you won't mind when I do this. This episode is brought to you by Mark King and Keeping Medicare Simple. Medicare Advantage open enrollment is happening right now through March 31st. And if you're on Medicare, this matters to you. And if you're in Northeast Ohio, I want to personally recommend someone I know and trust, Mark King. I've known Mark for years, and I've referred Medicare recipients to him time and time again because he puts people first and keeps Medicare simple. If you're thinking about switching Advantage plans or even returning to original Medicare, call Mark's office today at 440-832-8936 to schedule an appointment. And for clear, easy-to-understand information, visit the user-friendly website keepingmedicaresimple.com. When it comes to Medicare, I trust Mark King, and you can too. So thank you, Dr. Piper, for setting the table for me there. That was absolutely perfect. I love Mark King, and I thank him for his support. He is a phenomenal man, and obviously Medicare recipients in Northeast Ohio only, of course, would be able to use Mark's services, not in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or anywhere else people might be watching this podcast. Okay, Dr. Piper, on the screen, your article from this past weekend, The Bizarre World of Ketanji Brown Jackson. I talked about this some after the Supreme Court hearings last week on the trans in sports and private spaces, locker rooms, and so on and so forth. This woman just continues. I mean, I don't know. She is a veritable stampede of stupid. I think that's something they might say out in your neck of the woods in Oklahoma. And she exposes that virtually every time there are oral arguments being presented in these Supreme Court cases. Give us a summary.
I'm going to assume everybody knows the case here, so I won't belabor what it is. But essentially, you have two states. You have Idaho and West Virginia. Both states have done what's right. Both states are governed by sanity. Both states have said men are men and women are women. Women have female sports for a reason. We have Title IX for a reason, and that is to give female athletes the opportunity to compete. Give female athletes their own locker rooms, their own showers, their own restrooms, their own scholarships. And men should not presume to intrude into any of those areas. In any other sane world, what I just said, duh. I mean, why are we even talking about this? But in the bizarre world of Justice Brown Jackson, she apparently doesn't know whether she's a woman or not, because she said in her confirmation hearings in the Supreme Court, and by the way, sidebar, every Republican that voted to confirm her should be primaried out of office because they're idiots. They are not conservative in any way, shape, or form. If you're listening to a nominee to the Supreme Court of the United States who's asked the question, can you define what a woman is? And this woman says, no, I can't define what a woman is because I'm not a biologist. Why in the world would anybody that carries the label GOP, Republican, Conservative, MAGA, in any way, shape, or form, vote yes for this woman in a confirmation hearing for the Supreme Court of the United States? If anybody listening right now has a senator or a congressman that voted yes for her, you need to make it very clear that you will not vote for that person again in any primary or general election. I mean, they're idiots just as much as Ketanji Brown Jackson is an idiot. So she, in these two cases that are before the Supreme Court, she asks the attorneys for the states of Idaho and West Virginia. She says, well, I guess I'm struggling. This is a direct quote. I guess I'm struggling to understand. How can you say that these laws that Idaho and West Virginia have, how can you say that this law doesn't classify as on the basis of transgender status? The law expressly aims to ensure that transgender women can't play on a women's sports team. So why is that not a classification on the basis of transgender status? Now, just the fact that I had to read that sentence and the fact that your head is probably saying, what the heck is she talking about, is indicative of the problem. She just said the law expressly aims to ensure that transgender women can't play on women's sports teams. You know why the law says that, Justice Jackson? Because there is no such thing as a transgender woman. A transgender woman, your label is a dude who is pretending to be female. That's what we're talking about right now. So yes, the law does say a dude who wants to play dress up and pretend he's a female can't play on a female sports team. Yes, that's what the law says. There's no such thing as a transgender woman. Period. It doesn't exist. This is a category that you made up because you're an idiot. You don't understand basic logic, biology, physiology, or genetics. You are crazy. You're a crazy woman. But nobody wants to say that. My article, as you know, Bob, is just a list of questions that exposes the lunacy of this. But the bottom line is, I don't even know if we've got time for me to get into the questions, but here's the reality. The left hates what it means to be a person. That's the bottom line. And this is a deeper dive other than just me making fun of her by asking a bunch of logical questions, because how can you claim to be for female sports if you're going to deny that a female is even a fact and pretend that every woman, every girl is a leprechaun or a unicorn, a make-believe construct that comes out of your head rather than out of reality? I mean, I ask question after question of that in this article, but the reason that this is really important is this. Philosophically, ontologically, and theologically, the left shows us every day that they hate what it means to be a human. They're misogynists because they show that they hate women, because how could you be any more hateful of a woman than to tell her she does not exist? What's more hateful? To look somebody in the eye and say, you do not exist to me. You are not real. I do not care. You don't exist. And that's what this agenda proves every day. They're misogynists. They hate women because they claim that women aren't even real. Now they're misandrists. If people don't know what a misandrist is, that is a person who hates men. A misogynist, you hate women. A misandrist, you've said that you hate men. Well, how do they hate men? Well, two words: male toxicity, toxic masculinity. Everything that's wrong with the world. It's your fault, Bob. It's your fault.
Patriarchy too.
Exactly. So they hate women, misogynists. They hate men, they're misandrists. And then they prove over and over again that they are misopedists. Now, what's a misopedist? It's somebody who hates children. Misandrists, misogynists, and misopedists. They hate children so much that if the child is fortunate enough to survive Planned Parenthood, once they're born, these leftists immediately start indoctrinating these poor little boys and girls on their altar of their transgender gods. That's what the left is. And my entire article asks a bunch of questions that exposes the fact that the left, and Ketanji Brown Jackson is the poster child of the left. They have abandoned truth. They've done what Romans 1, Paul tells us in Romans 1, they've worshiped themselves for so long that they've been given over to a reprobate mind. They cannot think any longer. And they talk about civil rights and human rights at the same time. They hate civility and they hate human beings. They hate men, they hate women, and they hate children.
Wow, that was a tour de force right there. Thank you, Dr. Piper, and spot on every bit of it. The one thing you didn't address that I immediately addressed last week when we saw those hearings and heard some of the nonsense being spewed forth by Ketanji Brown Jackson is, how is she even allowed or eligible or whatever you want to call it to hear this case? How has she not been forced to recuse herself from this particular hearing and from this particular case, not have her opinion cited here when she said she doesn't know what a woman is? The case is all about whether or not it's discriminatory for men to stop, quote unquote, transgender men from participating or transgender women. See, I get lost in the vernacular too, because it's so obscene. Everything you said is right. Point being, it is about males on females teams, males in females locker rooms, shower rooms, and spaces, and so on and so forth. The point being, it is very specifically about men and women and who gets to do what. And if she can't even define one of the two, sexes involved here, then how is she even allowed to sit on that case? I don't understand how she hasn't been forced to recuse herself, since she cannot objectively define what a woman is. How can you determine whether or not sex discrimination between men and women has happened? That's what I don't get.
Well, you're being logical, and that's the problem here, Bob. You actually think there's a logical way to address the realities of our world, whereas these people deny logic, they deny biology, they deny ontology, they deny physics, they deny everything right now. So your question is a good one, but I can tell you right now, you will never find a leftist on the Supreme Court that will recuse themselves from anything, because it's not about principle. It's not about fair play. It's about power. And even on the Supreme Court, that proves itself every day. I mean, the left will not recuse, ever, period. You're not going to find it. Which sometimes puts us at a disadvantage, because the right, Amy Coney Barrett, she recuses herself because she's Catholic, and they're hearing this case on St. Isidore. So she says, well, I'm Catholic. I don't want this to be perceived as a biased decision on my part, so I'm going to recuse. Interesting thing here, and I don't know if this is true. I had somebody who's running for governor of the state of Oklahoma right now tell me that the Supreme Court justices should never recuse, because by definition, you were selected to be on the Supreme Court because of the assumption of being unbiased, that you have the professional ability, you have the intellectual capacity, you have the integrity to hear a case for what it is. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been confirmed for the Supreme Court in the first place. So his argument is Barrett shouldn't have recused herself. In fact, she did her office a disservice for doing so. So I don't know, a different argument, different day, but it's not going to happen. The left won't do it because it's not pragmatically valuable for them. It doesn't serve their purpose of power.
Well, I'm glad you pointed it out, though, the difference between Ketanji Brown Jackson and Amy Coney Barrett, and just generally speaking, the left and the right. We're different. We're not the same. That's a popular statement and phrase, I guess, right now in all of these culture wars and these political ideological battles going on. We are not the same. And I think we say that with a very, very certain sense of pride. We are not like that. We don't do that which they do, because it's not a part of, who and what, goodness and, the good, the true, and the beautiful really are all about. We don't do the evil things they do. We try to do the right things that they won't do. Like you said, if there is even a hint of some sort of a bias or some sort of a conflict of interest or whatever, we do, we will recuse ourselves from certain things, just to play on the example there. And to take this a step further in the we are not the same, Dr. Piper, I played this yesterday because I found it yesterday. Actually, I guess I found it on Tuesday. I played it on this show yesterday. Maybe you've already seen it bouncing around X as well. And I apologize in advance for the language in it and the grotesque statements made in it, but this is what we have to talk about. So I'm going to play this for you. And for anybody who missed yesterday's show and has not seen this, have you seen this face yet, Dr. Piper, in your scrolling on X?
I have, but to be candid, I haven't listened to the whole thing. So go ahead.
You're going to regret hearing it now, because this is the point I'm trying to make when I say we are not the same. You're going to hear something here that you hear this type of thing, maybe not this exact verbiage, but this type of thing from people on the left a lot.
All the time.
Yes. And I can scour the internet looking for somebody on the right to say something equivalent about someone on the left that we don't like. And I cannot find it because we are not the same. So this is a nurse.
Before you play it, Bob, I just want to say this. And it's true because you get it. You've never told me, but you get it. If we did a show on the things that are said to you, the private messages that are sent to me, the things that people say when I write an article, the vile, terrible things that I get weekly and that you get weekly, it's going to dovetail exactly with what's going to happen right now. And I haven't even heard this, but I know I have heard it because I get it all the time directed at me. Go ahead.
Well, this particular one is directed at Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt because she happens to work for Donald Trump. So that means she deserves this type of hate and vitriol. This, by the way, again, from a medical professional, a registered nurse who, as you can see on her bio there, and I don't know if that's going to continue to be the case, is a vice president of a home health service. But this is what this medical professional said.
My wish for Caroline Leavitt. She is pregnant with a baby girl, and I truly do hope that baby is so healthy. I hope she's healthy and headstrong. So headstrong, in fact, that as she is emerging into this world through Caroline's geriatric tech garage, that she tears her from bow to fucking stern. Grade 4 tear. Like so big that when she gets out of the shower naked and walks across the room, like she accidentally picks up dog toys. Yeah. That's my wish for you, Caroline.
Dr. Piper, go ahead.
Well, actually, Bob, it's tamer than I thought it would be. Grotesque, vile,
Yeah.
Yes. But it didn't include some of the language that is directed toward you every week. It didn't include some of the language that's directed toward me every week, where people actually take the time to track me down, figure out how to contact me privately, and spew terrible, vile things at me and you and anybody else who dares to counter the progressive narrative. How dare you challenge our ideas? How dare you enter the market square of ideas and want to have a debate with us? How dare you go to church and preach the gospel? How dare you vote for anybody other than who we told you to vote for? How dare you defend the people of Springfield, Ohio, who are citizens there who are being overrun by thousands of illegals that have been imported into their country and have taken away their property rights, their front yard, their sidewalks, and their very ability to walk to the grocery store in safety and security? How dare any of you ever say this stuff? How dare you defend a woman's right to have her own shower, her own toilet, and her own sport and scholarships? How dare you do any of this stuff? And then the next sentence is filled with vile, hateful stuff where they're calling you every name in the book and then saying the world will be better off. Your neighborhood, your community, Bartlesville, Oklahoma, in my case, will be better off when you're dead. I've received that stuff all the time, to the point where I've had to call in I've had to play a card in my friendship with the local police and say, would you read this? Should I do anything about it? Should I be worried? I mean, this stuff's happening all the time, people. They're not peace-loving people. This is the kind of stuff that took place in Nazi Germany when people started saying these types of vile things to Jews. And then when they had political and military power, they just didn't say stuff. They started doing stuff. Words always lead to actions. Ideas have consequences. And when people have these vile ideas in their head, it's not going to stay there. People act on the stuff that's in their head. And we need to recognize that. It's not just rhetoric. It will become action. It's becoming action before our very eyes in Minneapolis.
Yeah, you're not wrong about any of those things, and some of the vile things that you see and read and hear, that people send to you after they figure out how to contact you. I get everything that you just said, and I get some of that too. Let me tell you three differences between this and that. One is the fact that they contact you personally and privately to say these things to you. This woman and people like her did this publicly on a forum, hoping for critical mass, hoping for more people to see it. Number two, the hate and the vitriol that come from the mouths of people like this. Look at that face. It's coming through a smile. She was smiling the entire time she described the grotesque, vile thing that she wants to happen to Caroline Leavitt during childbirth, to her and to her child and so forth. She did so with a smile, which is just, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a psychological or a psychiatric professional, but it almost looks sociopathic from the loose layman's understanding that I have of sociopathology. So that's what I think of that when I see her, that she's doing it publicly, that she is smiling as she does it. And then number three, like I said, the fact that she is a caregiver. This isn't some gruff piece of crap, uneducated, subhumanistic cave dwelling individual who just has hate in his heart or her heart or what have you. She is a caregiver. Those letters RN are supposed to mean something. They're supposed to, but maybe in modern day American medicine, there is no such thing as a caregiver, because if doctors are willing to literally violate what used to be an oath that they took, the Hippocratic oath to do no harm, if they're willing to perform Joseph Mengele-like experiments on kids, on anybody, but much less teenagers, by cutting off their healthy breasts or cutting off their healthy genitalia and fashioning some sort of Frankensteinian body part collection of building fake parts and sewing them on in an experimental fashion. If they're willing to do that, I guess there is no such thing as a caregiver anymore anyway. But she's an RN, and she's supposed to actually try to help people. And this is the kind of thing that we get from her. And like I said, Dr. Piper, to circle back to the beginning of all of this, find some person on the right making these types of videos, putting them out there for the world to see, wishing these types of horrible things on people simply because they disagree with someone else's ideology.
And you know what? You're right. Find them. That it's going to be very difficult to find that person. But if you did, Bob, if you found that person, if I found that person, do you know what we would do?
I know what
We
you're going
would
to say.
condemn them.
Oh,
What's
okay.
that?
Well, I was going to say, I know what you're going to say, but I'll finish that condemnation part in a second. What I was going to say is if I find that person on the right and we actually see one of those, the odds are very, 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 very good that they're a fake. They're a fraud. They are like one of the posers, on J6 who are in a van putting on MAGA gear and everything else and going out to these, going out to protests or going out to MAGA rallies and then doing horrific things to make it look like conservatives and MAGA people are disgusting, deplorable reprobates. So chances are, if you see somebody wearing a MAGA hat on camera saying these horrible things about leftists, it's a leftist, literally, doing an Operation Chaos type of video. That's what I think. But go ahead.
Well, you're probably right. But whether they were legitimate or fake, you and I and every other conservative with this worth their salt would condemn them, and we would say this is wrong and this is why it's wrong. We would do that, and the reason is you summed it up in the word conservative. Conservatives believe in conserving things. We are conservationists. We believe in conserving the things that matter. And human dignity matters to conservatives more than political power. We believe in conserving the dignity of women and conserving the dignity of a child, the child's right to live. We believe in conserving freedom, freedom of expression, freedom to disagree, freedom to debate. We believe in conserving a church's right to meet, even though that church may differ theologically with us. We believe in these things that are grounded in immutable truths, truths with a capital T. That's why conservatives will see something like this and say it's objectively wrong. It's not subjectively wrong. It's not a matter of opinion. What that woman just said is evil. It's objectively evil. We can define it because we've conserved the definition of good and evil objectively, because we understand that some things are true and some things aren't. And it doesn't matter what your political party or what you as an individual think about those things. Your opinion doesn't matter. We don't care what the opinion of a conservative or a liberal is, a Democrat or a Republican is when it comes to truth. Truth is true. Truth is true, and that's just the end of it. Os Guinness says this in his book, A Time for Truth. He tells us that truth is true even if no one believes it, and false it is false even if everyone believes it. Truth is true, and that's just the end of it. Close quote. Conservatives can look in the face of evil and say, no, that's wrong. I don't care what your political label is. I don't care what party you're a part of. I don't care if you're part of my family or if I don't know you from Adam. It's either right or it's wrong for you to behave that way. And here's the thing, Bob, the thing that people get confused. Why would the liberal left, the purple hair nose ring left be aligning itself, the LGBTQ rainbow left be aligning itself with radical Islam? What is drawing those two apparently disparate worldviews together in common cause? I'll tell you what it is: hate, evil. The evil that they embrace, the hate that you see in this nurse's face, causes her to say the exact same type of stuff that somebody in ISIS would say as they're getting ready to cut somebody's head off. That's the hate that draws these worldviews together. And hate is a very powerful thing. Now, once they get their political power, heads are going to roll. And we know that the history tells us that once the communists gain power and once the Islamists gain power, they execute the very people that were aligned with them in the acquisition of that power if they don't toe the line. So some people are going to learn the lesson a very hard way. But what's aligning these disparate parties like Islam and LGBTQ is very clear. It's what you see in that woman's eyes and hear in that woman's voice. It's hate.
Yeah, it is. And she did find out to an extent. While you were talking, I scrolled down below the video that was posted by Libs of TikTok just to see, as you pointed out, we would condemn somebody who did that, as a representative of the conservative movement. I wanted to see if there were any condemnation by anybody that wasn't a conservative. But the first thing that I saw underneath that, I want to share, she did indeed at least find out. as the saying goes. First Choice Home Healthcare says, we are aware of a social media post made by a former employee that has led to questions and external comments. This individual is no longer employed by our organization, does not represent us in any capacity. The statements made on her personal social media account do not reflect our organization's values or practices. Now, I don't know what that actually means. She was fired and is a former employee because this happened, or she was not actually employed at the time she made this video. That's unknown at this point in time. But just looking down at some of the comments, most of the names that I see commenting under this are conservative names. You know, Mehek Cook, who is an attorney here in Ohio and a wonderful activist. Dan Acton, I know him as well. You know, Liz Wheeler, most people know. So these are all condemnation or condemning statements by conservatives. I doubt very seriously. And there's Betsy says, look at the malice in those eyes, pure evil, just like you said, Dr. Piper. As of December, somebody says her Facebook shows she's created her own business. Boy, oh boy, I'd wonder who would actually hire her. But at any rate, I don't see anybody that, you know, I would be able to tell easily is a leftist, a liberal, condemning this, because the chances are they are probably all nodding their head in agreement with it. You know, sad as it is to say. Wow. Okay, Dr. Piper, last thing for you, just real quickly. Do you know what the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act is?
No.
Have any familiarity?
I'm not gonna waste your time by guessing. So go ahead.
Well, yeah, I want everybody themselves who are watching our podcast to guess and figure out who and when do you think that particular bill would have been passed.
I'm guessing that Bill Clinton passed it. Is that correct?
Well,
No?
yeah, you should have given a spoiler alert there, because yes, I was going to say.
Sorry.
I was going to say that's all right. I was going to say it was passed in 2017 in the first Trump administration, which is why he's using it right now, because everyone would believe that. Everybody would believe and say, yeah, exactly. I asked Grok last night as I was preparing the show today to tell me about mass deportation laws in the United States, which of course President Trump ran on in 2024, saying we will begin the largest mass deportation in the history of the country. And I said, what does the law say about that? And Grok's response was, yes, the mass deportation law was passed, and what he is doing is lawful. It was passed in 1996 and signed into law by President Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And just a quick descriptor here. The IIRIRA, Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996, viewed a broken system. Illegal entry was rising, removals were slow, courts were backlogged, and endless procedural delays allowed people who had no legal right to stay in the country for years. Congress's answer was not to be nicer or look the other way. It was streamline removal, expand deportability, require detention for certain categories, and impose real consequences for unlawful presence. One of the signature features of the act was expedited removal, a faster administrative process for certain categories of unlawful entrance that does not require the full years-long immigration court odyssey. And I bring that up because of the federal judges who have been demanding that Trump give due process in all of these courts to all of these illegals, including the Tren de Aragua and MS-13 members and so forth. Turn that plane around, Boasberg said. Get those gang members back here so we can give them full due process. They're not entitled to due process by the letter of the law, signed by Bill Clinton. Donald Trump uses it, and he's Satan. He's the enemy. Bill Clinton signed it, and crickets.
But Bob, also,
there's more, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm sure probably on your piece of paper there, it gives you the number of people that Bill Clinton deported, and the number that Barack Obama deported, and the number that Joe Biden deported. And if I'm not wrong, every one of those three presidents have deported more than Donald Trump has thus far. In other words, not only was the law written and signed and became federal statute under Bill Clinton, they, meaning Democrats at the time, were actually extolling the virtues of deportation, and they were allowing, if not applauding, as their own Democrat president, i.e., Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden, were actually deporting people. Now, did they let more people in while they were deporting people out the other door? Probably. But
Obviously.
nonetheless, this demonization, the point is, this demonization of deportation under Donald Trump is hypocritical. It's duplicitous. It means nothing because they said nothing when their own presidents were deporting.
Well, I think a definition needs to be applied here of what deporting actually is too, because the one thing that Obama, he gets credit for deporting. He was known as the deporter in chief for 5.2 million illegals deported. Trump so far is up to 2.6 just in year number one. So hopefully that doubles and triples this year, which of course was the plan with the expansion of ICE and the money that was applied to that. But deportation needs to be defined too, because there is deportation the likes of which we're seeing now, and we saw in certain spots under Obama. We've all seen that CNN video that popped up from 2013 or whatever it was, of CNN embedded with an ICE patrol unit, an ICE officer in their vehicle, and they were going around in the middle of the night and finding these key criminals. Again, worst first type of same mentality, but going out and actually getting individuals who needed to be apprehended, detained, arrested, and deported. But the other definition of deportation that really, I think applies to the majority of the Obama and certainly the Biden deportations are people who cross the border and are turned around and marched right back out at the time. That is what Obama did more, and they called them deportations, than the actual go into the communities, go into the jails and apprehend and deport people and so forth. Biden, as we know, was responsible for as many as 12, and Trump has said as high as 20 million illegals coming in when you think about the gotaways that we haven't been able to count. So there's an estimate there. So he didn't really deport anybody from the standpoint of using ICE to go get people the way Trump is right now. But what they did was take credit for, especially in the last year when they were trying to keep their power, and they knew that illegal immigration was Trump's, bailiwick. It was his number one issue of his campaign, that and the economy. But that's when he started to try to say, we have deported people, because they started to turn some people around and march them back out again. And they counted those on the tally sheet as deportation. So I think it's a little bit overstated to say they were deporting in the way that Trump is deporting. But then again, they didn't have the massive crush of 12 to 20 million illegals in one 4-year period that require us to go and be more aggressive, expand the force. Aggressive not in terms of physicality, aggressive in terms of approach, and being more widespread and going into the cities where these people are congregated in order to remove them. I think deportation, the definition matters.
Well, and thanks for bringing that clarification to it. I would say this: yes, definition matters, and we need to define what they mean by deportation when they say, well, Obama did this, or I say Obama did this, or Biden did that. I would say this, however, what you just described proves again that they will move the target and the definition as they see fit for their political power. And then deportation was politically popular for them to talk about. Deportation in chief, or deporter in chief. Why would any Democrat use that label? Because you wouldn't hear them using it today. Deportation is synonymous with the greatest evil that ever take place in the history of the United States Republic. So deportation is evil, but yet Obama himself was proud of the label deporter in chief. The point is, they move the target, they change the definitions, they'll change the definition of anything for the sake of their political game, their political power. They'll change this definition of a male and a female, like that. They'll change the definition of life, like that. They'll change the definition of a baby, like that. They'll change the definition of freedom and liberty, of civil rights. They'll change the definition of anything for the sake of political power. And the proof, I'm going to go back to something in the previous few minutes. Look at what they did in that church. If that would have happened in a mosque, the exact same thing. The exact same thing. Change nothing other than it's not a Baptist church, it's a mosque. If that would have happened in a mosque, all hell would have broke loose. If that would have happened at Planned Parenthood, people would be in jail, and in fact, they already are.
That is 1,000% true. Especially the part about Planned Parenthood and, you know, the FACE Act and so forth. But what you just said about the mosque, my gosh, can you imagine that? First of all, I mean, CNN and MSNBC and all of the networks, the explosion of attacks on people for Islamophobia, the defense of Islam. I mean, there is already a refusal to condemn Islam, a refusal to condemn that which can only be condemned if it is understood at all. You know, I'll throw this out there, and this is really, really chasing a squirrel now. But I get very, very. People like to use the word phobe to insult conservatives. If you if you don't like something, if you disagree with gay marriage, you're a homophobe. If you disagree with transgender ideology, you're a transphobe. If you disagree with tenets of Islam, you're an Islamophobe. And I want to make a very, very clear distinction between those. We're not afraid of gay people. We're not afraid of trans people. There's no phobia there. We just disagree with this being forced and pushed upon other people and making other people participate in whatever capacity with those alternative lifestyle choices. When it comes to Islamophobia, it's real. And I admit to being an Islamophobe because I'm smart, because I understand the threat. There should be a fear of Islam because Islam is not a religion of peace. It's not a religion at all. It is an ideology hell-bent on world domination and subjugation under Sharia law, which strips away the rights of all people, but in particular, women. In particular, women. And Dr. Piper, I told this story on one of my live streams last week, and I'll tell it to you just to get your reaction to it. As you know, and again, this goes back to the mosque thing. How dare you desecrate a mosque? A mosque is that which should be desecrated because listen to what it stands for. I was sitting in my Catholic Mass 2 weeks ago, and we were doing the Nicene Creed, saying the Nicene Creed, and we came to the line about Blessed Mary, ever Virgin. And for whatever reason, ever Virgin, of course, the virgin birth, struck me at that moment in time. And my mind went, I'm sad to say, as the service went on, to Islam. And in my head, I just heard, because I've covered this for so many years, 72 virgins. Okay. And I sat there and pondered during my Mass, again, to my great shame, what that means for the virgins, the women. Islam teaches if you die in service to Allah, particularly if you die killing infidels, if you die in that way, the pilots of the planes that hit the towers, for example, the suicide bombers, if you die in service to Allah, you will be rewarded in heaven with 72 virgins to use and abuse at your discretion. And I thought to myself, what about the virgins? What about them? They, of course, have been condemned to hell to be able to have to live in such an existence. And then it took me into a place of just women who are alive, virgin or otherwise, who can just be completely beaten, abused. They have no rights. They are not allowed to drive cars. They're not allowed to show their faces or show their head or whatever the case might be. They are so dehumanized. Second-class citizen doesn't even begin to describe the way Islam treats women. And so I think to myself, what rational person, particularly a female, particularly a feminist, a liberal feminist, can possibly not condemn Islam and all that it is, for the way it treats its women in life, and then the fact that they virgins who die virgins, I guess is how this would work, are waiting in heaven to provide all of the sins of the flesh one can imagine for somebody who killed innocent people in their lives. That just strikes me so hard, Dr. Piper. I am just over trying to be fair to Islam. Islam is evil. It is not a religion. It is a dangerous political ideology. And anybody who doesn't recognize it as such, I think, is delusional and dangerous. Sorry for the extended rant, but that's it.
Well, amen. You're absolutely right. I think a phobia, I would say this, a phobia by definition is an irrational fear. If you're agoraphobic, for example, you're afraid of heights. Um, it's irrational. I have some irrational fears. If I go to the Grand Canyon, I won't get within 60 feet of the edge of the Grand Canyon because I don't want to be tugged over the edge of the dumb thing.
Same,
I-
same.
Okay, so maybe we all have some irrational fears, and that's what a phobia is. But again, in the political left's way, they've dumbed down the definition of even phobia to mean that if you disagree with somebody, then you have an irrational fear
Yeah.
of that person. And your perfect example for me is I've been very critical of the LGBTQ rainbow left. I think they're wrong. I think they've dumbed down morality to nothing but personal proclivities, and they've changed the definition of human identity. That if you are inclined to do something, that is who you are. I think that's a terrible way to define the individual. So I refuse to buy the nomenclature and the labeling of LGBTQIA because that's not what a person is. Just because you want to do something, that doesn't mean that's who you are. You can choose not to do it because you're a human being. You're not a robot. You're not a dog. You're the imago Dei, made in the image of God. You're not the imago dog. You don't have to follow your gut all the time, your belly, your libido. If you're a Christian, you're defined by your Lord, not your libido. Okay, so we've talked about that on your show 1,000 times. Well, when I say that, you can imagine the criticism I get from the left. They track me down in my social media, and you're a terrible human being, and they start using their expletives. Well, within the expletives, there's always some claim or accusation of being a phobic. Okay, I disagree with you. That doesn't mean I'm afraid of you. And if I were afraid of you because you're threatening to chop off my head, if you could ever find me because I dared to criticize Islam, that's not irrational, people, because you've proven, your ideology has proven for nearly 1,500 years that you do what you say. And that when you say in your Quran that it's your obligation to find the infidel and crucify, maim, and behead him, when you've got various different verses, surahs within the Quran that say that over and over and over again, and you've got 1,500 years of doing it, if I'm afraid of that, fearful that you might actually continue to do the same thing that you've been doing for a millennia and a half, that's not irrational. That's prudent. Period. End of it.
Yeah, there's nothing irrational about that. I'm looking at the comments on our live stream on Rumble, Dr. Piper, and one of the commenters said, fearing having my head cut off and my wife being gang raped by radical Islamists is not irrational. That is a legitimate fear, and it should be. It's happening all the time in Europe. We were talking about Europe before and President Trump with Greenland and everything else. In Europe, the gang rapes, particularly in the UK, by the Muslim invaders, it's unbelievable. The number of victims, and this is just starting to kind of make its way to us, in terms of the press and finding out about these things. But the practices, and somebody else, Roz, just pointed out, Bob, don't forget another feature of devout Islam, which is female genital mutilation. They literally will surgically remove the clitoris from a female so that she can experience no pleasure in sexual contact. She is to be a breeder. She is there for a purpose. Sex is for the purpose of creating more little future terrorists. And she's not allowed to have any enjoyment out of that. I mean, the disgusting, deplorable way they treat human beings, women in particular. Like I said, those who are supposed to be, and you talked about this before, the left attacking males, toxic masculinity, blaming the patriarchy for all of the ills and the problems in the United States and what have you. You would think that those people are advocating for women and for women's rights and for young girls and so on and so forth. Then why aren't you joining us in the full-throated condemnation of the faux religion that is Islam because of what it does to young girls? It marries them off at young ages. They surgically, mutilate them. And then again, when the men of Islam die, they get to have their way with 72 of them if they're virgins in the afterlife. So where are they, I guess? Dr. Piper, we're just about out of time here. We went a lot longer than we normally do. I'll give you the last word, though. What do you want to say in closing?
Well, so much, but I think the moral of today's show is there's a difference. Some worldviews are grounded in truth. And as the result of being grounded in truth, we care about humanity. We care about the dignity of females. We care about children. We care about things that are right and beautiful and good. And we look to conserve those things. Other worldviews, whether it be radical LGBTQIA rainbow, or whether it be Islam, or whether it be neo-Marxism, these worldviews don't care about truth. They merely care about power. And as the result of having power, they look to oppress and silence by whatever means, those they disagree with. And this nurse out of, I think it was Cleveland or wherever she was from, this nurse is the perfect poster child of that. They look to silence those who disagree with them, even violently so. Or they will pretend they don't even exist, like Ketanji Brown Jackson does. And they will deny the reality that is before their very eyes. Why? Because they've been given over to a reprobate mind. They've been given over to delusions because they're more interested in godlike power than they are in serving any other god other than themselves.
That's a strong way to close it. Good stuff. Dr. Piper, again, I'll remind everybody about the Rebellion, wherever you get your podcast. Dr. Piper does, and he's invited me to be a guest on his podcast, which we're going to try to make happen sometime very, very soon. Don't forget to read his great work in the Washington Times. Think about subscribing to that. It is worth it. Like Dr. Piper said, we all have to make a living, and sometimes you got to write a check to continue to get the content that you want to read and that you want to hear. So support him there as well. Dr. Piper, great stuff. We'll talk to you next week.
Blessings, Bob.
All right, that's Everett Piper, and that's bringing us. Wow, we went almost 90 minutes with Dr. Piper this morning, and I think with good reason, because I've described him in previous years on the radio program as being one of the generals that I rely on to lead us through the wars, the culture wars. Because of his biblical knowledge and expertise, his worldview, and his ability to articulate his knowledge inside and out of academia, which is one of the most dangerous. It's kind of an ideology in its own right. It's leftist, but the dangers of academia, because he was the president of a university for about 18 years. He's somebody that we rely on for facts and information and, like I said, guidance. So I hope you get a lot out of that. I do. All right, let's have a peek in the chat. And by the way, we're going to talk more about this on tomorrow's show. By the way, Patrick Wood tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that too. But we're going to talk more about that 1996 law. They literally expanded mass deportation in America by law in 1996, a bipartisan bill passed by the Congress and signed by Bill Clinton, expanded deportability and expedited deportability for illegal aliens in this country, particularly criminals. Congress demanded it. Deporting criminals and people with prior orders should be removed immediately, not left in procedural limbo, meaning having to wait for more hearings and more, occupying more time in American courts and so forth, deciding whether somebody who was here illegally should be sent home for being here illegally. That was done in 1996. The law is the law. It is still the law. Trump has ICE out there following and enforcing the law, and the Democrats are trying to stop ICE from doing that with the law that their president, Bill Clinton, actually signed. Which I agree with, by the way. That's pretty astounding stuff. Let me get into the chat, because Dr. Piper and I talked for virtually the entire show, and I didn't get a chance to pop in and see what folks are doing. I did read a couple of those comments about Islam that we had at the end there, but let me just jump in. And again, my eyes are going to go first to the donors, the supporters, financial supporters of the channel. They're highlighted, which is, I guess, how this works. So that's where the first comments are, going to pop out to me. Our Lois Irene asked earlier, talking about the nurse, the vile nurse. Why do these awfuls have to spread their vile? Awful, AWFL, affluent white female liberal, or activist white female liberal if they're not affluent. Pure evil, she said. Yo, Jimbo said, I figure her hair is off color, the blue hair, blue or purple washed out. Where's the nose rings and neck tattoos? Leftist kind of pattern. This one is scary because she can mix in. Who do you think goes postal. Listen, that's the one thing, I shouldn't say none, because I've been in hospital or clinical settings where you do see some of and maybe they're not RNs, maybe they're just like nurses' aides, that you're going to see visible tattoos and you're going to see the different colored hair and the nose rings and so forth. But when you're an RN, I think there are more rules there, more protocols that have to be followed with respect to appearance, because you're supposed to engender trust from the patients, in your professionalism and in your knowledge and so forth. So that's probably why she wasn't a blue hair, because she was an RN. Now that she's been fired, Lord knows, maybe she'll break out the rest of the costume. Yojimbo says, great to hear. Okay. Casey John said she should be fired and lose her license immediately. The fired part, I guess we can confirm. The company said she's no longer employed by us. Losing her license, that might take some doing, but I agree. There's no way, shape, or form when you are a professionally licensed caregiver, you can say the kinds of things she said and still be able to keep that license, I would imagine. Let's see. Zelda said, please take her off. This is what scares me about hospitals. All right. Yeah. She is a nurse. So scary. Exactly correct. Let's see. Just again, I'm popping by if you want me to see your comments, like I said, be a supporter. Be a monthly supporter, or put something in the tip jar, whatever you can do. Be a supporter so we can pop you up there and I can see your comments popping out, I guess I should say. Zelda said, you said the key point, Dr. Piper, you can't use logic or facts with crazy libs. They just can't see the truth. Politically incorrect mechanic says, so why do we think the Dow breaks 50,000 by the end of the week? All right, that's getting off into a bit of a different topic, but that's the beauty of the chat. You could talk with one another, whether it's about the topic at hand or not. Let's see what else. Yojimbo said, sick of the crook-headed leftist, anti-American at its core. Sick of the crook-headed leftist. I'm trying to make sense of it. Freedom doesn't mean allowing socialist oppression through science, lies, and propaganda. That is exactly correct. Yojimbo said, Bob, your philosophy on the 40 virgins, it's actually 72 virgins, is an undeniable truth. Sucks for the virgins, but not by Islam standards. Charlie said, we already read that one, fearing my children being sexualized, brainwashed, and groomed by a bunch of alphabet mafia. Oh, I didn't read this part. Alphabet mafia individuals that don't know what bathroom to use is not irrational when they say it. It's a good point. It's a very good point. Jimbo says Trumpophobia is a symptom of TBS. It is indeed. Roz said it happened to my granddaughter because she wanted to join the football team. How about the honor killing of women? Casey John said, yeah, exactly right. That's another feature of Islam that, again, where are feminists? Why aren't they protesting outside of mosques? Why aren't they going inside the mosque and demanding, that the imam answer all of these questions the way they did into the Christian church in St. Paul, demanding that the pastor dare explain, why he may have pro-ICE opinions? Are you kidding? Funny how they want more gun laws and won't support any current law, says Sharon. Completely agree. Oh, Brian jumping in with another A for the awful. Angry. Yeah, I think it started out as affluent white female leftists, the awfuls, or affluent white female liberals. Brian just changed a couple of them. Make the A angry and make the L leftist, not just liberal. That's not bad. That's not bad at all, Brian. In fact, that's good enough. Then I'm going to go ahead and end the show on that one. All right. Thank you to Dr. Everett Piper for going overtime today. A lot of insights. I hope you got a lot out of that. Thank you to the chatters. Don't forget, I'm looking at the number of people in the chat, and then I'm looking at the like button, and I'm thinking that isn't matching up. When you come in, automatically go to the like button and slam that. Hit that like button every single time you come in. And then don't forget to not just participate in the chat, but leave a comment in the comment section. Okay? The platform loves engagement. It loves likes, it loves comments, and it loves follows. Please like, comment, and follow. That's how we, again, get this to be able to grow to where we need it to be. That's the point of all of this. All right. Thanks, everybody. And don't forget, join locals. That red button underneath the picture, the video screen, is the locals community that we have put together. That is just getting ready to break out and explode. I'll tell you more about that on tomorrow's show, and maybe with an email as well if you are following along with the Strictly Speaking This Week newsletter. All right. Thanks, everybody. Be well, be safe. As I always like to say, be well, be safe, and stay free. We will see you tomorrow. Next, Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Bye, everybody. Well, I'm trying to give you some music on the way out, but it's not happening. Oh, there it is. No, sorry.